What do we do to have a better understanding of our business environment? Environmental scanning, that's right. We know that the business environment is full of uncertainty. We are scanning it to look for signs indicating that we may change our course or the direction our business is going. Sometimes managers might see those signs and still resist changing. Competitive inertia is defined as a reluctance to change strategies or competitive practices that have been successful in the past. In other words, we made some decisions that made us successful and gave us money and recognition. Like Pavlov's dog, those things made us salivate, and now we're reluctant to move away from them. The book uses Sony as an example of a company that has not changed its strategy fast enough. By sticking to their old practices, they've fallen behind by investing too many resources in industries they no longer have a competitive advantage in. They are trying to regroup, but their projected losses are currently in the billions. Okay, so even when a company recognizes that it needs to change and overcome the competitive inertia, managers still need to watch for something we call strategic dissonance. Do you know what dissonance means? You know when a group of people are singing and someone is off key? It sounds really bad. That's dissonance. Strategic dissonance is a discrepancy between the company's intended strategy and the strategic actions managers take when actually implementing that strategy. In other words, the CEO says that the strategy has to be Plan X. Plan X is what we are going to do to survive the dynamic changes in our industry. The managers hear that, but they don't know how to implement X, so they implement Plan W. W is close to X. It sure isn't Plan H, which is way off. But Plan W is not Plan X, and that is strategic dissonance. This slide gets into one of the most powerful strategic tools we have, a SWOT analysis. This is what you'll do for your group project. In a SWOT analysis, we look at internal strengths and weaknesses and external opportunities and threats. Strengths and weaknesses come from an internal audit. Opportunities and threats come from what? Environmental scanning. When conducting our internal analysis, we're looking at our distinct competences and our core capabilities. We're also looking at things that we aren't so good at. We need to recognize those. I've put on the Canvas page links to 2 videos that do a good job of going over these. When we look outside, again, we're using environmental scanning to identify opportunities and threats. Some of this scanning includes close monitoring of your competitors. Not all competitors are the same. The text breaks them up into 2 categories, core firms and secondary firms. Core firms are close competitors. McDonald's close competitors include Burger King and Wendy's. A secondary firm uses a similar, related strategy, but different from the core. A secondary firm for McDonald's would be Starbucks. Most of McDonald's and Starbucks' success can be correlated to their ability to obtain great locations. In other words, they similarly focus on real estate development. Okay, at this point I'll remind you that I put 2 videos on the Week 5 strategy page. They are both good. The first has some great examples. The second has some great ideas on where to get information when conducting a SWOT analysis. Remember, half the points from your SWOT analysis come from your analysis and your recommendations, connecting the dots between the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then using that analysis to provide a viable go-forward strategy that will put the company in a better competitive position. So now you've done the SWOT analysis and you are working on a go-forward strategy and your recommendations. There are 2 main strategic alternatives, risk avoiding and risk seeking. Do we want to protect an existing competitive advantage? That would be a risk avoiding strategy. Or do we want to extend or create a sustainable competitive advantage? That would be risk seeking. Sometimes we want to do both, risk seeking and risk avoiding, depending on which companies we're talking about. But a lot of the time our decisions are to take a risk or not depends on where we see ourselves compared to our competitors. We look at our strategic reference points and decide if we're performing better or worse than them. A strategic reference point can be either a core firm or a secondary firm. Usually they're core firms. How do we decide this? We look at maybe their customer base versus our customer base. We look at their profit margins versus our profit margins. Regardless, we are benchmarking against certain criteria. We will get to more specific corporate strategies later. For now, just know that we usually use our competitors as benchmarks in deciding whether to engage in more risky behavior or not.